We are back. Phish is back. Oh my god, what a show! What's up, guys?
Oh yeah.
Fun
Yeah,
show, man.
I should have spent more than 20 minutes this morning trying to find a ride to New York. I'm really kicking myself, and I don't normally do. I'm normally
Yeah,
like,
it's not like there were any tickets available or anything.
right. Well,
I
I had two
know.
different people tell me if you show up, I got a ticket for
Yeah.
you, and I was like, I called one person. They were like, nah, my husband doesn't. It's a date, and I was like, all right, and I just
You
let it
gotta
go.
commit, man. When that kind of situation comes up, if you leave it like, oh, we'll see how it is, you get defeated by self-sabotage. But if you commit and you're like, I'm seeing Phish tonight,
Right, right.
you're gonna show up and you're gonna make it. And tonight, honestly, I hate to say it, Kev, but tonight was a show to see. I thought it
I
was a
should have been
great way to
stumbling
start a
around
run.
New York, right? I should have been stumbling around the streets of New York right now.
So
Yeah.
let's start off by before we get in digging into the actual show, just overall thoughts,
Better than
tier
Dick's.
grade, whatever,
Better,
grade.
better than the 4 nights, any of the 4 nights at Dick's.
Interesting. I'd have to go back to Dids to I mean Dids had I really liked night I really liked the rainstorm night and the night after that.
Yeah, me too.
But I have to say that like Phish now is on this. I heard, Mike Gordon actually, he said this to me personally. He said that Phish has it dialed in, right? Because we were talking about his solo band, and he was going, yeah. With Phish, it's like we got that dialed in, and so I think about that sometimes because even when it's like a crazy good show, they're just so professional. They don't have bad shows anymore. They have standard shows. They can be boring to like us because we see them so often. But like if you see them once a year and you don't listen to them in between, there's no bad show, right? So
Yeah, you're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be
yeah,
enjoyable.
that's right. And so I feel that they're on this fast track and they're so professional. So tonight started off with that rust that we all know. We all like come to think of tour openers as having, and we just come to accept that the first night of anything is gonna be a little rusty. But that was Buried Alive and Wolfman's, and then they like discarded it, and they just like in the past it might take them an entire show, and traditionally the first night of all the New Year's runs, I was if not rusty, they've always been a little bit like tentative, and tonight they after 15 minutes they're like, okay, cool, we got this.
I think that was by design though, because Buried Alive and Wolfman's were the perfect two songs to start a run. Because Buried Alive, it's high energy, it gets people dancing, but it's also kind of janky by nature. So if you're a little rusty or off, you can hide in the jank and just kind of rock it and get everybody dancing at the same time. Then Wolfman's does the same type of mechanism, but for the jam. Right, like now you got people dancing. It's a very easy song for them to go into a jam off of.
Hide in the jank, by the way, isn't that a lyric from Ocelot? It should be.
It should be.
Come hide in the jank.
No, do you think that the Wolfman's? It seemed a little slow to me, like it
100%. 100%.
All right,
It dragged from the beginning. It was very slow, and then the jamming. And I was thinking about this consciously at the time because I've been thinking a lot over 4.0 about how like when you go back, and I tend to only listen to the most recent Phish. The most recent Phish is the Phish I listen to the most because I've heard everything else, right? But then when I go back, and so I argue with people that are like, oh, like 1.0, like there's no touching it. It's like no, like whatever. They're still they evolve. But one thing that is abundantly clear when we go back and we listen to these 1.0 shows, and then anything from 4.0, they've slowed down. However, going back to 1997, there were a lot. I mean, that it was the year of the groove and the cow funk, of course, but like it's a lot slower than we remember it.
No, I agree. I don't know if going slow is a bad thing, though.
Yes,
now,
that's right.
like overall, you're right. Like there were moments where they had the slow cow funks, but like overall, the early 90s were way faster than they are now. But
overall,
sometimes I think that's better. They find their pocket better and they're more musical.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Well, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Look at the Grateful Dead in the 70s versus the Grateful Dead in the 80s and the 90s, right? Like it just
versus Dead and Code. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I know.
No, absolutely though. That's a completely valid point. And the thing is that as we all get older, I'm glad that they slowed down a little bit because I've slowed down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so and I look out and I just remember how the audience used to just rage. And now you look out on the floor and it's like the audience is, they're all moving. I don't know, but 1 in 10's raging. The rest is just
Kev's
they're
sitting
just
on the
raging.
floor doing like
Yeah.
a yoga.
People, and friends of mine in the seats are sitting down, which back in the day they never, they were page side high for life, but then turns out
I said this first set had 3 songs that I would have stood for. The rest of it I probably would have sat.
That's a recent development, though. I feel like the full acceptance of that was in 3.0, because early 3.0 it was still not like you would like judge somebody, but there was like a general like air of everybody's standing, everybody's raging, and now a lot more people are sitting. And I don't think it's because it's less energetic or less fun. It's just we're older, man.
It's the mindset of I am funkier than you.
Well, I think what happened is I think the pandemic speeded it up because it was a couple of years off, and then everyone came back, and rather than like gradually getting older, because normally it's like you gradually get older, and when you're with a scene like constantly, you don't notice, like when you don't notice your friends getting older because you're getting older as well if you see them constantly.
Right.
If you don't see like your cousin or something for 2 years, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, like
holy
you
shit, you're old.
It's like we come back and we're all just like, we can sit down now.
When I went to Nashville after the first night, I was like, I only stood up once in 18 months, and I got on a plane and came to Nashville and fucking raged all night. I was like, what the fuck? My body hurt so bad. The next night I sat on the hill the whole night.
Well, okay, so after Buried Alive and Wolfman's and the Rust, it's funny because we're talking about tempos. They go into what I thought was a decently paced maze. And maybe my perspective is shifted since the slow maze fiasco and the slower mazes. But I thought this was a pretty clean, pretty uppity, fun maze.
Interesting rhythm guitar part in it. The Trey laid back a little bit that you don't normally hear. It's normally all solo, which I thought was fun.
I like all solo, but yeah, I hear you.
But that goes back to even in the Wolfman's, like with the slower jamming, where they just come out, and a part of it is that, and don't get me wrong, like I love it. I think it's great, but I think there's a few elements to it. Part of it is their aging, but also part of it, they're just so comfortable. This was their 69th show at the Garden. Trey's 71st show at the Garden, I think, because he did Dave Matthews.
We were with the Black Crows. I was at that show.
The Black Crows, and then also with Dave Matthews and friends. Yeah. So I think this is, unless I'm forgetting another time he opened with Tab, I think this was his 71st. Regardless, 70 times.
A lot of fucking shows.
Yeah, at the Garden. And you're just they're just so relaxed up there. That's why, like, when you're young, bands often it's a mistake that a lot of younger bands make. And that's that when they do covers, you can really hear it. The tempos are a little bit fast with every young band because they're nervous up there and it's energy and they just want to play. But then when like you are so comfortable that Phish can just look out at the audience, not touch their instruments for a full minute and be like, there's no awkward silence.
They live there. It's like their second home, and they're very comfortable.
It's like they're in their living room, as we're in our living rooms watching it, which I think is great.
That's an interesting segue real quick. Sitting in our living rooms or our basement offices, watching it on Couch Shore, they added some cameras and some gizmos to the production, and I think it was an A+. It was a home run all the way. I love
the NFL
what
camera.
did you guys call it?
The NFL camera.
You and T were talking about it in the chat.
I called it the NFL camera.
My friends called it the Sky Cam.
The Sky Cam, that's it. Yeah. That was awesome. I think the webcast production value definitely has improved. I still want to get to the point where you can select your angle and get the Crota Cam, because that's how I would probably watch the whole show is Crota Cam.
Select your angle.
Yeah,
all right, Sigma Oasis.
The self-editing, I think that would be great. But yeah,
we're definitely going over 20 tonight.
Right. Sigma Oasis.
Sigma Oasis.
Well, we should be 30 with 3 of us. Remember, it's my 10 minute of box rule.
I'm going to take the lead on this Sigma Oasis because something struck me when I was watching it or listening to it is the tone of the band. You know how everybody talks about like tone of the guitar, the tone of the keys or whatever, but as an entity, Phish has tone that sometimes is off, sometimes it's classic, like the quote unquote Phish sound, and then sometimes it's something that's fresh or a little unique. And this Sigma was the first point of the night, and they did it a couple times tonight where they really locked in that tone of the jam. and went somewhere that I thought was really exciting. I mean, it wasn't necessarily the best jam of the night, and it wasn't the best, a jam that you're going to talk about for months and years, but it was a very clean, well-toned jam.
It was, to me, I thought Sigma Oasis sounded like a Phish jam. Like it was very 3.0, and it was just like, this is like a very, like, it was a clean Phish jam. You know what I mean? Like, even though it had the tones and it got a little dirty, it was clean in that, like, it was archetypical Phish. It was just like, it could have been, if you took it out of context and played it for me and been like, what show is this? I would have said, I don't know, something from 2015 on.
Right.
The transition back was a little rough.
Yeah.
It seemed like Trey is sometimes ahead of the band. I'm going back in, and then it takes them 2 bars to catch up with where he is.
They were Trey was recording throughout the night. That was a recurrent theme. And you could tell on the cameras. It's one of the things I love about Couch Stories. You can see their faces, and he took Paige by surprise a few times. Paige is along for the ride, but he looked up. He's like, "Oh, really? Okay."
I don't know. Maybe I'm just desensitized to it because it's become such like a standard practice as of late. But like, I didn't feel like it was really terrible tonight. Like, there were a couple of ripcords and he was doing it, but I didn't feel like it was offensive tonight. I felt like it was a very standard night one. Get the rust off, lock in, hit some classic, jams and move on.
Well, the next song, NICU, I would call wobbly at best. I'm not sure that they really remembered how to play it while they were going through it, but it was.
You're all being analytical and critiquing, and I'm still high off that second set and encore. But no, I agree. I think
even the first set, I'm still high off. I thought it was great. Where we're going with this, the last 2 songs of the set were funny,
Right. Steam is right. Steam is what Steam is. Tila is. A lot of people are really always excited to see Tila. I've seen a mess of Tilas, like
but it's
7 or 8 of them.
It's still fun to see. I hear you.
It's their first love song. It's their first love song, and then
she fucks him over. She fucks the Resistance over. Unbelievable.
I think when you hear Tila, though, it's kind of signals that the night. And maybe I'm putting too much into it, but it's a little more special of a night. Regardless, dude, like, there's people that have seen 500-600 shows at this point. Like, you're gonna have a mess of Tilas, but like, it's still overall statistically in a percentage base that creates a signal that the night is special.
It's a special song. When they play it, it's a rarity. It's a treat.
I used to think that with Dire Wolf. If the Dead played Dire Wolf, if Jerry played it in the first set, the second set was going to fucking rock. That was my thing for years. So when they played Dire Wolf, I was like, yes, it's tonight. Oh, well. All right. I digress.
All right, so now we're getting into this double punch to end the set that Benji alluded to, starting with Stash. We had a number of great stashes this year. 2022, in a lot of ways, was the year of the stash. How do you think this one's ranked or stacked up against the year?
Well, here's the thing. So Stash to me is like the classic Stash would be mid-90s, like 90, 94, right? When they were doing the very chaotic dissonant jams. And that was like the caricature or the character of Stash it was always very, very dissonant and built to this chaos. The stashes of this past year have been phenomenal, and they've been but they've taken the song in a different route, which I love. That's what I love about like these long haul songs, is that like the only way that they will keep playing them is if they can keep going to new territory with them. So some shine, like Mike's song, in the 90s shined, and then it became standard, and then like it became a funk tune. So all these road horses change, and the way that Stash has changed tonight, it was like a Baker's Dozen style, like Bliss adjacent jam. It was really, really beautiful. And going back, one thing to clarify is what I said about how tonight Trey was pulling the ripcord. The difference between what you picked up on, Tim, the difference between those shows when he ripcords the jam and you're like, oh no, when he was ripcording, like the jam itself, like in Stash, had come to a beautiful, like it was towards the end and it was like time to go back into it. The ripcord was it was an abrupt. All of a sudden, like he just was like, okay, jam's over. Now we're gonna.
Right, he was a little impatient. Like it was the right time to do it, but normally he should wait a couple bars and do it smoothly. And he's like, "Fuck it, we're doing it."
That's right. So it was abrupt. However, he wasn't recording the jam itself because
Right,
the
which is
jams tonight
better.
the jams tonight they all went to their beautiful conclusion.
It's
Right.
funny you mentioned the Bakers though, because there was an actual riff. I don't have perfect pitch, so I can't tell you, or perfect memory. So I can't tell you if it's 100% the exact same, but there's a riff in Stash that I feel is, if not exactly the same, extremely familiar and similar to riffs that he played throughout the Bakers. That like
Streets of Cairo. The Streets of Cairo.
Is that
No,
what it is?
was that in it tonight? I didn't hear it tonight.
No, I don't think it was Streets of Cairo. I
Cairo
think there's a certain guitar solo riff that he just lands in, and it's like muscle memory or something, and maybe it's derivative of something that they wrote. But whatever that Baker's riff is, which maybe we'll isolate and put it on Twitter or something. I heard that tonight in Stash, and I felt like it was very Baker-esque, which is not a bad thing. It's a little overdone, in my opinion, just because I've listened to Baker so much, so I want something fresh. But it was also good the first time you heard it.
Yeah, and it was Bliss adjacent. It wasn't a full, but it was definitely reminiscent of 2017 Phish. And I thought that was great.
What'd you think about Melt to close out the
Melt?
set?
I thought that the Melt was fantastic. My favorite thing Phish does is when it completely falls apart and you don't know what's going on or who's playing what. Are they even playing the song anymore? And
that is an intense song on a head full.
Yeah.
Stash was the only song tonight where I wish it had gone just a few minutes longer, but I thought it was great. It was the falling apart, like the chaos, the like they disassemble and they.
Oh, you're talking about Melt, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said Stash.
Yeah, I meant Melt.
And we went back into it again. Trey was there before the band. It needed a little more time to breathe. They could have vamped for another 2 minutes and then found
with the hits to come back in.
Right. It didn't hit like when you sometimes they do it and you're like, oh wow, that totally belonged there. Tonight I was like,
that's what I mean. And those hits when they come back, the end of Melt and the end of Bowie are two of my, and the end of Hood, I suppose they're like my favorite moments of Phish, because it's like, especially when they take it really far out there. And you're in the moment so much that you forget, you're not thinking about songs. You're not thinking you're not even thinking in contents of songs. You're just in space. And then all of a sudden, bam.
Yeah. I would say
they bring you back down.
It's one of the greatest things ever. And the end of Bowie is my favorite thing in all of Phish.
Best climax in any musical experience ever. Kev, back to what you started the show with, talking about how you like this better than United Dicks. I think the Dicks Melt was a superior jam and transition. That said, I did really enjoy this tonight.
I agree. I'll take the Dicks Melt over tonight. Yeah.
Well, I didn't expect Melt. I thought Stash was it. I thought we were walking away at Stash at 70 minutes and they threw on another 15 or whatever. So.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm going tomorrow night.
Everything's
we're not doing a whole run, but like when I heard Melt, I was like, no. I haven't been in that position of worrying about what's off the table in a long time, but now I was like in that position, and everything else up to that point I was all right. But I love seeing Melt live. To physically melt in the venue is like none other. All right, so we're at set break. Couple of housekeeping items. First of all, we're going to be here every night this run, 15 minutes after encore. I hope you join us. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, and it's a great way to support us, and you won't miss out on all this awesome Wook content. Also, go ahead and hit like on this video.
Tomorrow night we have Amanda, your PhDJ, and then Friday we have the Skin Man, Anderson Skinny, coming on with us.
Yeah, and I just did a podcast with that man, and oh my God, so much fun. He's funny, dude. It'll be a fun night. And even New Year's will be here, so come back and check us out.
And then we'll be back next year. We're gonna be back next year with
why don't you start us off on the second set?
Start us off on the second set. All right. Free. You gotta love Free to open the show. Benji, I guess we'll touch on this more, but it was a good size Free. It got beyond the normal constraints of what it was.
Where did it come in at? What was the final time on it?
11 minutes. clocked in at 11 minutes.
That's
a little
good free length.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
what you were referring to before we started, I mentioned that a free consistently is in the 8-minute mark unless they jam it. And usually when they jam it, except for those frees that were those monumental frees, it's like 11 to 13 minutes. Any free over 10 where they have just it's just a miniature extension in the middle there. Is just and whenever they go back into it, that it's like the one time when I'll throw the middle finger up in the air at them, and like only half joking, because it's always like, as soon as they go into that, that like the song is back on track, and the
what I call the eminence front part of the song.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. But 11 minutes for a free is perfect.
Yeah, I think it's also, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but like at the start of a set, I have a little bit of anxiety or a little anxiousness about what they're coming out with, because I feel at this point I can, within a certain margin of error, get a sense of the set by what they open the set with. And coming out with Free, not saying it's my favorite song, not saying it was the best jam, but I felt very good about the set right away. I was like, that's a good choice. I'm here for this.
And they did exactly what they did at 422, if I'm not mistaken. Free Wave of Hope to open the set.
And man, Wave of Hope, once again,
MVP of the year.
Is an MVP.
Unbelievable. So and it's even got an R8 lyric.
Dude, no, all right. Honesty time. Welcome, children. Let me tell you some truths here. Every time Wave of Hope comes on and I hear him singing, I'm like, I hate this song. And then like 30 seconds go by and I was like, wait a second, this is about to get a lot better. Well, it's not my favorite to start, and it always
that's every Phish song that you don't like. Every Phish song that you don't like, it's like Planet. If you listen to it, then there's a point in it, and every song that you don't like, there's always a point where you're like, actually, this is pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I'll take Wave of Hope over 90% of the new stuff out of what Trey's been doing.
No, you're talking when you say new stuff, you're talking about like the dad rock.
Yes, from everything's right on. From everything's right on.
This is an unfair, and I don't want to get too tangential here, but this is an unfair thing that happens at Phish, is they look at their studio releases, and that's the only new stuff. But then you have like Sci-Fi Soldier, Cosmos Fox, even a lot of Sigma Oasis, but there's so much new stuff that is still funky as shit.
But I think of those as band things. And I think of something like Wave of Hope and Hello Stranger and all that, or like the Trey solo stuff and Everything Right and Set Your Soul Free came from
I know Trey's like dad.
And they're dripping with Eckert.
Yeah. Huge Eckert vibes.
And I'm not an Eckert guy, maybe. That's what it boils down to.
So
Wave of Hope, 20 minutes, we're out there. It's fucking beautiful. All of a sudden they're playing It's Ice, and it was a magical segue there.
Yeah, it's the best segue of the night by far.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was patient, and it was
patient. That's the key, Benji.
That's the key. It was patient. It wasn't abrupt. It was just you're at point A and then you're at point B, and you're like, how did I get here? This is not my beautiful house. And then It's Ice was great. It's one of those songs where I don't know, you have to be an asshole to say you don't want to hear it. It's a great song.
Yeah, there was a phase. I feel like there was a period of time where they flubbed or fucked it up a lot, maybe like late 3.0. It's one of my favorite songs, like probably my personal top 5. Like everybody has their top. But live there was a period where I was hesitant to hear because like I just expected the flubs. But then recently they've really righted the ship with that one, and it was a great version tonight.
Yeah.
And beautiful segue. You're right, Kevin. It was a fucking
they didn't really extend the jam, but what they did is you can tell they practiced it. Going back to your point, Tim, they rehearsed, because it's one of those songs like Foam and like Esther is another one, which we'll get to, Gaiudi, where when they know that they're gonna play it, they sound check it, they rehearse it, every time. So they had to have sound checked it today.
Well, now they do that though. Like 2018, 2019, there were a couple of shows where they like would bust out a Gaiudi or an It's Ice, and it would train wreck. And
like
even
South
when they
Carolina,
bust it out, and it seems like they bust it out from nowhere, they still rehearsed it, but they flub it.
Yeah.
But they still rehearse it. Those songs are so complicated.
Insanely complicated. I agree.
But even for them, I mean, I remember in the 90s when they didn't play My Friend for it was like a month that they didn't play it, just a month. And in Europe, in one of the shows, you can hear Trey banter. I forget what show, but somebody's yelling for my friend, and because it's a small, intimate theater, Trey can hear it. So Trey returns, and Trey goes, "Oh, we can't play that. We don't know it."
Right.
They had just done it a month, but then what he meant was they didn't rehearse it that week. Like it's all these songs that if they're not playing it every 4 shows like they used to when their repertoire was that small. That's the thing, is back in the when they first played those riff tunes or Jinta for that matter, like they were playing them every if not every show, every 3, every 4 shows. And so now when like for It's Ice should be twice a year. And so they have to go back and they have to rehearse it.
Yeah, but it's nice when they do nail it and rehearse it. I appreciate they put that effort in.
Yeah. Leaves too.
All right, so this is where things are going to get a little hostile here. We're going to give you a little behind the curtain. We have a private message, like a group chat, Kevin, like Wook Plus and the guys, and so like we shared notes during the show to kind of like get ready, and I was ecstatic. I was over the moon. I was so pumped. Through A Wave of Hope, It's Ice, and Leaves. I thought Leaves was placed perfectly. I thought it was the perfect choice. It's an incredible song, and Kev's like, oh, the first clunker of the night. And I saw red. I was livid. I was like, what the fuck, Kev? Kev, what do you think? Are you still holding that opinion?
I just it doesn't do anything for me. I mean, if I was listening to a CD, I would skip it. Wow. I might even get up and fast forward a tape.
I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was perfect placement. I thought it was played perfectly. I want it to be in higher rotation than it currently is. I know that Trey loves it. I
have an issue with Phish trying to be serious sometimes.
Trey told Tom that he thinks it might be Phish's best song.
Oh God.
I agree. Honestly, it's the most. Like,
I think it's an amazing song.
What do I know?
Phish for us is a special thing, and for a lot of people, and I'm not trying to diminish them, but when you look at like the grand history of like rock and roll and everything, they don't necessarily always hit the same tier as a lot of the epic, like a Bowie, for example. But this song, outside of our little bubble of going to see guys jam and everything, it's a fucking great song. It's written well, it's sung well, it's put together extremely well. And you know what I think is unique about Leaves is it's one of the few songs that still gets better every time I hear it.
Yeah.
So many songs because they played them for so long, and I'm not trying to fault Phish, but you've heard a better version.
Yeah, no,
and
that's
every time I hear Leaves, it's like this is continuing to evolve.
The old songs, like arguably, you've heard them peak, right? And then the new songs arguably have yet to peak. And so, like, it's so interesting because when they and I mean, this is like an often brought up pattern that you can see going back to the 90s. Phish debuts a new song and people hate on it on the internet. But then a year later, they're the ones cheering for it, and it happens so often. And now, now as soon as they debut a song, like Thread is another great example. Like if they played Thread every 4, 5, 6 shows and consistently build it, it would be a showstopper every time. I like
Thread a lot too, actually.
Leaves has yet to peak. We saw a Type 2 Leaves this past year that was incredible, but Leaves has yet to peak. I can't wait.
I feel kind of weird standing so hard for Leaves, and I probably wouldn't have normally if Kev didn't trigger me right before this show. I don't want to overstate it, but it's a good song.
It's just a personal thing with me. The song may be fine, but I don't want to see that. I don't. It's just I want to rock and roll. I want rock and roll. If I want to go see somebody play pretty slow music, I'll go see someone play pretty slow music.
So you didn't like The Simple either, then?
I like the Simple because Simple is irreverent. It's just
It's
dumb.
simple.
You know, that's what the beauty of it is the irreverence of it, is the weird lyric. And
Yeah, but if you took away the lyrics, the meaning of the lyrics between Leaves and Simple, they kind of transition really. They're really like, they are not to reference another Phish song, but to reference the concept. They are birds of a feather. Leaves and Simple, kind of, you know, they're in a very, to me, take away the lyrical context. Musically, to me, they fall they would play well on an album next to each other.
Well,
really,
lyrically as well, though, because the conclusion or the resolution with Leaves is to breathe, right? And I feel like the next thought after you clear your mind and breathe, I gotta stop singing. I've done it like 3 times tonight, and it's never as good as I hear it in my head.
I thought they were singing Free Reprise.
It has a very similar vibe to that, but no. But after you breathe and you clear the shit out, then you're like, man, life is simple and it's great, and we got all this shit here, and we're enjoying it together.
I don't, in my head right now, I'm not hearing Leaves and Simple being simpatico.
Well, Benji and I are definitely on the same page, and you are not, sir. You are not.
Right.
All
But
right,
the Simple got nice. It got
the Simple was good. It wasn't a Deer Creek Simple or anything like that. It wasn't a Simple that I think we'll be revisiting much, but it was good. You know,
good transition into Plasma, though.
Well,
another solid.
Wait. I want to go back. I want to stick on this Simple jam for a minute.
I want to go back to Leaves.
Fuck you, man. No, this all right. The Simple wasn't like mind-blowingly incredible, but there was a part where it was hooked up to a machine. Is the only way I know how to describe the bleeps and bloops.
It got mechanical.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, and I love that type of jamming. Everybody's like, "Oh, I love dirty, dark, evil Phish."
I like arcade
machine Phish.
Arcade Phish too. You know.
Yeah. The bleepy bloopy.
When Trey's leaning on those, like when he's leaning on the sci-fi, tones. It's just the whole thing sounds like they sound like a fictional band from the future. It's amazing.
I think Page has a lot to do with it too.
He does. Arcade Phish.
The setup breakdown during the set break. That's awesome. It was so fun to see all the different toys and everything, how he uses them. But I feel like both, you're right, Trey and Page have created a new version of Phish, the arcade version, and I love that kind of jamming.
Yeah, I love Arcade Phish.
Now, Kev, we could go into Plasma. I just wanted to talk about the end of that Simple jam.
Does Plasma sound like an ICU to either one of you? Because whenever they start Plasma, I think they're playing an ICU.
An ICU sounds a lot like, or the other way around. What is it, Ocelot? No, Ocelot and Ghost. I don't know.
Ocelot in Alaska.
I hear the word Plasma. I love
there's songs that are like paired up. Oh, it's Santos and Ghost, Ocelot, Alaska. There's another one, you're right, that goes with Plasma, but I don't remember what it is.
Plasma,
right there's a few. In Possum, I always wanted to be Helter Skelter, even though I know it's not going to be.
Plasma is such a great song, and I think it has so much potential as a 20-minute vehicle, and it's always 6-7 minutes and they're out of there. It's like they're afraid to open that door.
Yeah, and I do like the Plasma fests, like the one in Mexico where they're going in and out. Which they've now done, I think, 2, maybe 3 times.
Dick's in 2021, I think.
Yep.
That was great.
And then can we move ahead to the twist? The twist I thought was it started off with more of that relaxed jamming that we were talking about, and that like laid back. They're just like in their living room. Trey was very clean. It was like very clean toned. And then all of a sudden, towards the end, and it was only 8 minutes long, but towards the end, there was the holy shit moment. When it was just like, if you walked into an arena and didn't know what you were walking into, and you walked into that moment, you would drop trout and just be like, holy shit. You'd be the pantsless person on the floor.
I agree. They definitely hit the holy shit. And in general, it was such a fun jam. It was a really fun what didn't close that I thought at the time that it might, though.
Me too.
They're still doing a great job with keeping you a little off kilt on where you are in the set, which it was a kind of a theme throughout 21 and 22, and they're still doing that because I felt like it probably could have climaxed and closed the set, but no, it was a really fun jam. Kev, you want to take us out on this set?
The hood, I love that hood. I thought that they really it sounded very 1.0 to me. It sounded like they were really dialed. By the end of the show, they went from the opening night jitters, quote unquote jitters, whatever, shaking the rust off, to really nailing that hood. It isn't going to be up there with the legendary ones from 1.0, but it was solid, and I feel like better than what they were doing this summer with it.
Yeah. There are some legendary ones even in 3.0, but I agree. I think it was just a very well played, and you don't know. I don't always need that from Hood. What I need from Hood is a well played Hood, just like Slave. If it like becomes exceptional, that's bonus. That's gravy. But like a Hood by itself, played well and nailed, is exceptional.
Yeah.
It is exceptional. So it's just so and they nailed it. So it was exceptional.
Yeah, it was really well played, and there's something about MSG too. I don't know why. Ever since Hood Guy, or the kid that was like
Yeah.
just like out of his mind, ecstasy during
The
Hood.
red shirt guy.
Yeah. Ever since that, it's just like it really like synced in how like that impact of that song on people. I don't know why. It's just something about that in MSG and such a feel good thing. And I thought this was a perfect way to end the first night. Well, the second set of the first night of this run. Before we go on the encore, I want to talk about how the show kind of stacks up against the year. And I want to volunteer my thoughts. I thought in April when they were at MSG, they were at a very high level. And I think the summer kind of dipped. And I don't want to be a negative, Nelly or whatever, but it felt like it did compared to 21. I feel like we're back at that April level and feels a very much upward Fuck you, Kev. Take that shit off of there. What do you guys think? Where am I wrong, Kev?
I think the issue with the spring and summer tour is they did way too many shows. It became oversaturated. So there
too many shows.
I don't think that at all, because I think that Phish gets better when they play a lot of shows. Their greatest tours,
I think they got complacent.
Their greatest tours were the last leg of their longest tours.
I think they got complacent.
97, it was like it took all of summer 97 for them to get
1.0. You're talking 1.0 stuff.
But even now, the more that they play, the better they are. I just think that they came back. I think they came back out swinging out of the gates after the pandemic break, and then I thought that like it was like that initial just like hunger that they had in 21. And then all of a sudden it's like now it wasn't that they had too many shows, but they got comfortable. They got comfortable.
Which is fine. You're not going to hit it every year, right? 15 with Magnaball, 17 with the Bakers.
Yeah.
I would
21.
call it complacent. I would call
even
it
in the 90s. Look, they had 96. They had 90.
96.
Yeah. 99.
96 was Saved by the Ball.
Yeah, and 96 had some great shows. That get forgotten. But overall, it was a dip. This year
I
had
love
great
Phish,
shows.
dude. I'm so glad that we are in the middle of a run. I don't even attribute it like, obvious that, hey, Phish isn't playing. There's something off. Right. But there is a part of me where life just doesn't feel 100% locked in when Phish is off the road. And then they start playing again. And then that last little bit just whoop, everything's in its right place. And Phish is back and we're enjoying it.
I think that this show, I think this show will stack up and be, for me, in the top 10 of the year, if not the top 7.
Yeah, and it was a very much a very strong 28th show, because 28th
might be the best 28th show ever.
Top 3 probably.
Yeah, there's some really good ones there.
Yeah, there's some really good 28th.
Yeah, there's some really good ones, but
this, as far as the 28th show, this was a very good 28th show. It played that role of starting the run very well.
And as far as the last 10 years go, I think that it was definitely one of the best. They're just back in the day. There were a lot of really great opening night. For especially if they had done a fall tour. But that being said, I do think that it was pretty. I think that it was a pretty unexpectedly strong opener, and it bodes really well for the next 3 nights.
I'm going tomorrow, dude. I'm fucking stoked.
Yeah,
Can't wait.
It'll be amazing.
So
all right,
let's
encore.
brush over Esther. Esther is gotten a lot more popular recently.
Why you want to brush over it though? It's still deserving of some comment.
So I have a hot take.
Yes, we love those.
Okay, so I love Esther as an encore, and the reason being is that it is a great song. I loved it when I first got into Phish and was listening to Junta in a dorm room smoking a bong. I thought it was great. But the problem with it is that the only problem with it, because it's a great tune, especially when they rehearsed it and they nail it. The problem with it is that it takes up a lot of real estate.
Set killer.
So even though it can be it's a set killer because of the real estate, right? Because it takes up a lot of real estate, and it's a compo. Anytime those long composed tunes, arguably there have been times in Fluffhead has even been that set killer. Any long composed play.
I don't know about killer, but I
don't know about
killer.
But if it's placed, if it's poorly placed, any of those long composed tunes. But Esther, it is a great tune. I'm always happy to hear it, but it can be a set killer. So rather put it in the encore, and then you hear that it's just a killer song.
Yeah,
it's great. It doesn't, because it's about flow, right? Set killers aren't about whether or not it's a good song. It's about does it disrupt the flow of the set? That's why it kills the set, right? And so at the encore, it can't kill anything, and it's a phenomenal song. It's genius.
And then they throw a little
weird too.
Then they throw a little.
It's very fishy. I love it.
Then they throw a little extra with the 46 days. No organ during Esther. We had Jason. What was the other song without organ? It was in the first set, I think.
And it's funny because that separate page was talking about how he has backups to his organ. He's like, I got organs for days, and all of a sudden the organ goes missing. I don't know.
Phantom of the Opera action.
Yeah. All right, Kev. What did you think about the 46 days? Let's
I thought that
context.
It was truncated and it was an afterthought almost. But good for them. Leave your fucking.
It was meant to be a punctuation mark, and it was like it almost lost me at that point. And that if I was in the building, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna find my trash bag with my coat in it, and and hope
no beer is in it.
About my next move, but it's after Esther, I do think you need a little short punch.
You need a punch,
it could have been first tube. It could have been, it could have been character zero as a punch. It could have been any of those ones that Trey literally wrote to be a set closer, because he wrote these songs to be set closers. Cavern.
Yeah. And I don't know what else the expectation is, because that is what it is for.
Yeah.
And it ripped. I know. Okay. Yes. There's been incredibly long, beautiful type 2 spaced out 46 days that just go weird places. I'm not saying that there's not, but it was 11:55 on a 12:28 show. You knew it was going to be a few minute punch, and I thought it ripped tonight. I'm so happy with the way that ended the show. I thought it was a very appropriate way to end the show.
Yeah, I do too. The blasphemy about Esther and what was the other one?
Fluffhead.
The thing is that they're great tunes. That's the thing, is that they're great tunes. It's all about placement. It's all about
Fluffhead is an opener. Fluffhead is an opener. Or set closer is great
too.
Fluffhead
can go anywhere. I'm sorry, Benji, but there's no way Fluffhead's killing a set. Fluffhead can go anywhere.
In the middle of a second set, it's like, well, I'd rather something that's gonna be a little bit more type 2 friendly.
Which they did in April and MSG. Right. That
there's always exceptions, and I think both songs are exceptional songs. They're leviathans, they're beasts.
All right, well, let's leave it there. I think this was a great night one. We'll see how the run continues. Go ahead, like and subscribe. Benji, you got any plug or any last words you have to share?
Last words of 2022? No, I'm good. I'm looking forward to the next few nights.
Yeah, and I appreciate the hell out of you coming on here and joining us and talking a little Phish.
Classing up the joint.
I always have fun with you guys.
Yes.
Remember tomorrow night? Tomorrow night it's going to be me and Amanda because Tim's going to be at the show. Maybe I'll convince him to call in after.
Yeah, maybe I will. And you're like, hey, let me bring my podcast on Wook Plus.
We're taking over.
We're taking over. But you should join 15 minutes after encore. Join Kevin and Amanda. It's going to be fun. All right, thanks, guys.